Hey and welcome back to another video tutorial. Today I'm creating some mixed media artist trading cards, and I wanted to use some of these stickers that I made myself a big time ago, I think, and also some of my handmade washi tape. There is a video tutorial for some washi tape and the stickers already on my channel, and I'm going to link it up in the top right corner info cards. Some of these washi tapes I made recently together with my members in an exclusive video, and yeah, the others are older ones, and I try to use some of them up if possible, so I have space for some new ones. The cardboard pieces are just from a thin cardboard box. I really like to use these as a base for artist trading cards because they are light but sturdy, and that's a really nice surface to work on. I'm starting with the bigger piece of washi tape, which I've made with our dotted stencil, and some bigger gummed paper tape, and I just wet the backside of the washi tape, and then the glue gets activated and I can adhere it to the cards. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just going to cover the backgrounds with the washi tape. This is the tape that I've made with my members. It has some kind of a grungy background texture, and then I added different kind of stamping. I really like to use these washi tapes because then you can make projects where you don't need anything else. So you can use the washi tape um, to create backgrounds, and you don't have to do a lot on top because there is already so much going on. Today I want to create some really layered artist trading cards and create some depth and interest in the background, and I'm going to use stamps on top anyways later in the process, but I think you don't have to. It depends on what you are creating. I think these cards needed it. You will see it later in the process, but it's not necessary. And these tapes are also really nice to decorate notebook covers. So if you have some notebooks or sketchbooks, you can use those to decorate them. And I also mentioned, I think in my last video, that I used these tapes also to decorate some cardboard boxes, and then they look quite nice, and you can use them to store artsy stuff or anything else in them. I wanted to bring in a little pop of color, and that purplish pink paper or washi tape fitted quite nicely onto these backgrounds, so I decided to pick this. And once these the backgrounds are dry, they are a little bit wet because of the water I used to activate the glue. I'm going to add also some of the stickers I showed you in the beginning. There is a blog post for these cards available over on our shop blog, and I'm going to link that up in the video description. There you can have a look at the close-up images of the finished cards, and you will also find all the products I've been using linked up in the video description. And if you are enjoying the video, please leave a comment and give it a thumbs up. I will now cover the cards with a layer of clear gesso to secure the washi tape and the stickers so they don't come off later. I think the stickers might come off after some time because these are just labels that I have printed with the jelly plate. I let the clear gesso dry a little bit. It's not 100% dry. And here I go on top with some heavy white gesso using a palette knife to just bring in some more areas without texture. And also to make it more interesting, it adds another layer. And later in the process, we're going to add some acrylic ink over the top, and this will create some depth on the project. I often get asked, well, not often, sometimes get asked why I cover things up. So I just could have left these covers out, these papers out, and then start with the next layer. But when you add layers, there is always something peeking through, and the underlayer is usually always affecting the layer you put on top. And that makes the piece interesting. And that is where you cannot easily recreate that. So it's always a bit of a surprise, and it's never planned. I cannot plan what's happening. I'm enjoying the process, and the process brings up these textures. I'm now going to let this dry, and then I will add some acrylic ink on top to change the whole cards, and yeah, to bring in even more depth. Here I just do a little bit of mark making with the Stabilo All pencil. I dip the nib into water and then I scribble into the wet gesso. I think that's not necessary. I was in the mood doing that. Whilst the cards are drying, I prepare my focal points, and I was not sure at this stage which images would fit my background, but I thought that I might use a white stamped image or white stamped images. And here I'm using an embossing ink some white embossing powder and the Canson mixed media paper, and I stamp some flowers and butterflies, and later I will decide which ones I'm going to use as focal points. The embossing will act as a resist against any water-soluble medium I use on top, and I plan to use watercolors to just quickly color in these images, and I will do this later once my card backgrounds are finished, so I have an idea which colors I want to use. The backgrounds are dry, and now I'm going to add a layer of acrylic ink over the top, and here I'm using the Antelope brown from De La Rowney. It was a bit too much, and I just get rid of something on my background paper. I plan to finish this background paper as a collage paper for a future project using some kind of a resist technique with gesso, and I think this will be a kind of a bonus video for my membership program. In case you haven't had a look, I have a membership on YouTube where you get a video tutorial every other Saturday, and also some, let's say, a few photos from my studio, what I'm up to, and I also upload my former Instagram videos from time to time that I had over there. I think about 2 years ago, when I had a YouTube, Instagram subscription program. I just didn't like the way Instagram handles the updates and the organization of the videos. It's really hard to access them, and that's the reason I moved to YouTube. It's a bit better here because we can make playlists with all the videos, and then they are easy to find. For the second card, I picked a Prussian blue acrylic ink, and I'm dabbing off some of the ink with a paper towel, and I wet it a little bit to remove it from the gessoed areas so I get some different shades of the color. And it's often when you create with mixed media, you get at a point where you have the ugly stage, but you have to push through that stage, because then you usually will always get something that is pretty. It's just that don't stop at the ugly stage and think, oh, now the project it doesn't look good, I have to stop. Don't do it. Push through it. It's the same when I create sketchbook pages. Often there is a stage where I think, oh, that is not looking good. But once I go on top with more details and more line work, it always turns out to be a nice image. Well, not every image is perfect, but I usually like it more after adding details than I did it in the ugly stage. So, and for my last card, I've used the raw sienna ink from Liquitex. That gives you really a lot of depth in your work. This is also a technique you can use on a canvas when you want to build up a background and then work over the top with other stuff, create maybe some imagery or stuff like that. I'm now going on top with a little bit of stamping, just because that stamped image will sit on top of that gesso and the ink, and that brings in even more depth. There is already a lot going on, but that just adds to it, I feel. I'm using some simple number stamps from our Mix It Up 7 stamp set. You can use any kind of simple texture stamp you have. It's not important which exact stamp it is. Once the cards are 100% dry, I'm going on top with some mark making, and I'm using Posca pens, not Posca pens. I'm using Neocolors for that. I thought about using Posca pens, but I haven't. I decided to pick the Neocolors and just make some marks, some scribbles on the cards, and I pick different colors depending on the background. And here I felt that the orangish color, it might be saffron, I think, looks good, and I'm picking other colors for the other cards. Here I thought the turquoise will pop up really nicely from the background and bring in some complementary contrast. And I think for the blue card, I'm picking two Neocolors. I pick a pinkish color and a blue one. I I thought about using some orange to bring in a complementary color, but I felt that it was not the right way to go for this card. So I wanted to stay in the same area with the colors. So this is blue and purple a bit on the background, and I just brought in a bigger range to go to the pink side and add a little bit more blue as well. And as so often, I go in with the Art Graf tailor shape crayons. I'm using the white one, and I'm also going to use the black one to bring in some splatters that also creates depth. And I really like the highlights in this case because the card backgrounds were quite, well, they have a nice tonal range, but I missed some really white areas and some really dark areas, and that was the reason I added in the splatters. And while the cards are drying now, I'm preparing, or I'm finishing the focal points. You can't see anything because I did the white embossing on the cardstock. And here I just picked that watercolor palette because it laid next to me. My daughter used it the day before. It's one of the Mai Liang palettes. You can use any watercolors you have. The embossing will resist the watercolor, and I plan to just quickly color over the stamped images, and then I'm going to use those on the cards. And I decided to go with a blue butterfly for the blue background, and I just damp the brush, and then I can soak up the paint that is sitting on the embossed parts. You will never get a perfect image with this technique because you always get some paint on the embossing, and also my embossing ink is running out, and I did, in some areas I don't have a thick layer of embossing powder, so I definitely have to re-ink the embossing ink. If you want to have a perfectly white image, I recommend using the watercolors first, let that dry completely, and then do some white embossing on top. But then you have to let the background dry quite a while because it has to be bone dry so that the embossing powder does not stick everywhere. And here I just added in a second blue, a darker one, to bring in some darker areas. For the other cards, I decided to pick one of the doodle flowers I've stamped and one of these leaves that are on the same set. The butterfly, for example, is on our butterflies and moth stamp set, but I'm going to link up all the stamp sets I've been using in the video description. Once I'm done with the coloring, I let this dry, and then I'm going to cut the images out. I think I will also color in the other stamps I've used on that paper. There are a few more, not sure if you can see them on a bigger screen maybe. And then I will keep those for future projects. And once they are dry, I will just glue them to my artist trading card backgrounds with a little title, and that's all I'm doing for this project. I'm going to leave you with some photos of the finished cards, and you will find the link to the blog to have a closer look at the images. And I hope you enjoyed today's video, and hopefully we will see us next time. Bye!